Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining, and welcome to another session of our Day One and Beyond series, where we take you through various topics and activities related to building solutions on the Oracle Cloud. My name is Joey, and I'll be your host for today's session. This will be the final session on our 8-part series on the Oracle Analytics Cloud Platform, or OAC. And this overall series was designed to help you unlock the full potential of OAC and transform your data into actionable insights. Today's final session will focus on unlocking consumer controls within the platform. And to lead us through today's webinar, I'm honored to introduce our speakers for today, Uma Kumar from our personalized training team and Pete Madura as our analytics expert. And with that, I will hand it over to Uma.
Thanks so much, Joey, for the introduction. So hi, everyone. Again, my name is Uma Kumar. I'm a senior cloud engineer. I'm joined with Pete today, who will be taking us through the demo. Before we get started covering consumer controls in OAC, I do want to pass the mic to Pete for just a second so he can recap, our entire series, as today is the final session, and we also have that QR code up on the screen that you can scan and it'll take you directly to our YouTube playlist.
Great, thanks, Uma, and thank you everyone for joining. As Uma mentioned, we've been doing this since the beginning. We started early in late in 2024. Planning started for this, saying, this is our 8th one. So we think we've covered most aspects of the Oracle Analytics Cloud platform, and anyone should be able to go through these webinars and really become very familiar and very proficient in the platform. And just to run down the sessions that we had, we started off with an OAC overview. This is where we touched upon every functional area within the platform and some of the most popular features, just to make sure users and consumers understood what the service was all about. Then we started breaking it down into more kind of functional areas. We started with some intro to dashboarding. That's all the front end work. Then we moved over to intro to data sets, which is really all the back end work, data preparation, data flows, other objects like that. Then we had a session on advanced dashboarding. This is where we took several different topics and features and showed you how to combine them to build some more sophisticated workbooks for some of your users. After that, we kind of broke it down into a few other areas. One was a machine learning and AI. So we did a whole session just on integrated and native machine learning features, and similar with AI. Everything that is integrated and everything that was native to the platform. So we decided to have a dedicated session for each one of those because there was so much material. Then we moved on to the semantic modeler, that is to building data models within OAC, followed by administration. So any administrators out there would be wise to go in there and watch that to just kind of know where they're going to spend their time and what some of the tools and features they should be using. And then finally, that brings us to today. And that's all about unlocking consumer controls. And Uma's going to tell you all about what we're going to cover today now.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete, for that recap. So yeah, like Pete mentioned, we're going to be going through consumer-related controls and features and how, if you're a developer, how you can turn certain things on to help your end users just interact better with the visualizations and dashboards that you've created on Oracle Analytics Cloud. So before we start diving into those topics, I'm going to give a review, like always, of our platform. So like how we typically mentioned, you can think of Oracle Analytics Cloud as a fully comprehensive platform. So not only do you get augmented analytics with things like natural language query, there's some embedded machine learning as well. So you can use data flows to create different ML models. You can also think of it as self-service analytics. So that's where you can create different visual stories, go through the visualizations and dashboardings. And we spent quite a few sessions this year diving deep into that phase. You can also think of it as a governed analytics platform too. So taking advantage of our enterprise architecture and security, having different experiences, for the developers, so different tools for them. And again, using the different types of roles and permissions to grant people with different types of levels of access to the platform. And speaking of the self-service analytics workflow, this is kind of the typical workflow that we go through as well. So you have, starting on the left-hand side, where you're going to connect your different data sources, relevant data sources, model them maybe into physical sources and business views. Then you can start with the data enrichment and preparation, Finally, you get to the visualization aspect where you are exploring the data, creating experiences through these visual stories, and then lastly, being able to share and collaborate the content you've created through folders and different types of access as well. All right, so now let's go into some of the core features that are related to user consumer controls and features. So the first thing I'll talk about is the insights panel for consumers. So when you're designing a presentation flow, you can actually specify certain options that you want consumers or users to be able to access in the insights panel. When you make the insights panel available to consumers, you can choose whether or not to keep some of the following features available in that panel. First one would be watch lists. So this is going to allow consumers to view watch lists that have been shared with them, or workbook assistant. So consumers can also, take advantage of the AI assistant, ask natural language questions to help them analyze, the data in the workbook or in the visualizations that they're viewing. Next, I mentioned watch lists in the insights panel, but you can also have the ability, to create these watch lists in your home page. So essentially, you are going to have any sort of visual sitting right on your home page when you log in. So rather than having to navigate, through all the different workbooks, choose the proper workbook, and then, access the visualization you want to see, you can actually choose certain visuals from your different workbooks just to already be shown up on your home screen once you log into Oracle Analytics Cloud. So it's a way for you to configure and kind of customize your home page for quick access. Next, we have contextual insights. So contextual insights compare selected data in a visualization with the rest of the visualization's data to help kind of identify attributes in your data set that will show the most important contrast between two groups of data or columns of data. So they expose the dimensional breakdowns, trending charts, and other visualizations. Essentially, they're going to give you these insights to highlight kind of how differently your selection behaves compared to the rest of the data in the visualization, and can reveal those kind of high levels of contrast. So you can add related columns, and again, it's going to give you a visualization about those related columns. And this is something else that you can choose to turn on in the property panel. The next is going to be your present mode options. So this in present mode, that's essentially like the final pane in your workbooks. If you're, creating a workbook in OAC, you have preparation, data visualization, and then present. So this is where you can really give your users control in present mode. So they can do different things like change the visualization type, maximize something, zoom in, sort, drill by, or export. And essentially, your developers are going to allow users and consumers to do different things for each canvas at the canvas levels. And that can include, again, using things like AI assistant. But essentially, you want to use present mode to specify how you want the workbook to display to the consumer and then how the consumer can navigate and interact with that workbook. So several different options, once again, that Pete will be diving into later on in the presentation. Another feature is conditional formatting. So essentially with conditional formatting, you're applying rules to your data to highlight when something important happens. So for example, in the picture, we are using the stoplight colors to show when the revenue meets high, medium, or low thresholds. So just another way to like highlight importance in a visualization. You have a wide variety of options right now, like font color, icons, background color, so on. So this is just another way to kind of add a little bit more intrigue into your visualizations. Next, we have custom image backgrounds. So you can upload an image, prepare the image as a map background, draw map layer shapes onto the image, and associate data with the map background layer. So again, this is going to be to add some more information, make your visualizations look a little bit more appealing, or highlight some important factor contrast within the visualization that you're displaying. And the last option is going to be creating your custom home pages so you can organize content for your users to give them easy access into what they need by creating these custom pages. And this is like an alternative to the default OAC landing page. So again, just making sure that You can see the different projects or business units that need particular, workbooks to be highlighted or pinned at the front. You can apply colors, icons, layouts, and then you would secure the page as you would any object. And for those particular users, when they log in, they'll see the custom homepage that was created for them. All right, so that was brief. I wanted to be able to give it to Pete so we have plenty of time to go through some of these topics. So I'll hand it to him now and we'll get going with the consumer controls.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Uma. Really appreciate it. And thank you for everyone attending today. Now, for the next 40 minutes or so, I'll be covering all the topics that Uma just reviewed. And if you've attended previous sessions, this one is a bit different. The entire series curriculum was based on my years of experience working with Analytics Cloud and many of our largest OAC customers. Most sessions covered a functional area or a service like workbook development, semantic modeling, machine learning. But this session was designed for two distinct personas: developers who design workbooks for others and all OAC consumers. So just before we launch into today's session, I would like to share some tips that I've seen with some of Oracle's most successful customers who rely on this service. All right. So when I think of consumers and developers, I've been at this for a long time, and I've sat in many different seats on the IT side, on the business side, and I just want to kind of impart some words for you to potentially have more successful engagements within your corporation. First, develop a center of excellence. Now, this shouldn't require a large effort or an all-encompassing framework. Start simple. Appoint a few folks from the development team and a few passionate consumers who will utilize the service. Honestly, just getting them in the same room will eventually yield positive results. 2. Bring consumers into the development conversations early. So often are consumers left out of the discussions when organizations create new content for them. This is a mistake. Bringing in consumers early in the process allows ideas and knowledge to flow between the developers and the subject matter experts, and both parties will benefit. This can also help dispel any assumptions that developers often have on what is needed and/or required. Next, monitor usage, share results, and discuss trends. As we discussed in our administration session, this service has built-in usage tracking. Configuring this feature will immediately highlight who's using the system, what are they using, what are they not using, along with dozens of additional attributes, which can all be used to understand the data and objects in there and how they should be regarded and how often they should be reviewed. Preview newest features and ask consumers how they can be utilized. This platform upgrades about every 2 months, so make sure the users are aware of the new features. Oracle provides clear documentation along with new feature videos organized into a simple playlist for each release on YouTube. It can be as easy as sending those 2 links to your users after each release and asking for feedback. And finally, set up reoccurring meetings and keep at it. An open dialogue on what's working and what isn't working is a recipe for success. And for those skeptics out there, can these meetings get heated? Of course, I've been in them myself. But that's typically because users are passionate, they want to be informed, and they want their voices and ideas heard. These meetings are important, so don't give up on them. So just to sum up, developers need to be aware of all the options that could potentially deliver more impactful reports and insights. Consumers should understand what's possible within a service, and this combination can lead to amazing collaborations and well thought out and designed dashboards. And with that, let's get started. Here we are in the OAC home screen. I'm running on the July 2025 Enterprise Edition, and I'm logged in as an administrator. I built a workbook to help with today's session, so let's go ahead and open that up. All right. So kind of at the top, you kind of see I do this for most webinars that I'll create a workbook to kind of help us navigate and talk about some of the content for the webinar. Now, it's very exciting that this happened to be our last webinar and it coincided with the July release. And with the July release, that finally allows consumers to use the new AI assistant. So when we started talking about this back in January, AI assistant was still kind of not even wasn't even there available in the product, and we've just slowly seen it evolve over the last 8 months while we've been developing these. So again, July release, consumers can use the AI assistant on all shapes and sizes of Oracle Analytics Cloud. Because I've already ran into a lot of customers that aren't getting the results they expect from their AI assistant, these are just some best practices I want to give everyone. For the admins, be deliberate when selecting your data sources and columns, meaning don't just turn on everything for the AI assistant. Take a look at it. For example, you can have up to 2,000 columns for your AI assistant, but are they all really necessary? So you want to pick your most heavily used data sets. Make sure you have the right columns selected. Get rid of the columns you don't need. There's no reason to send the model columns that aren't going to really be used or prevalent in any of your questions. And that dovetails with the second one. Add synonyms, right? This helps the model understand your business vocabulary, right? If you have vague column names and data names, you got to give it synonyms. And so your business folks can type what they want in their natural business jargon. And then again, be selective on which columns you expose. And when I say expose, I just mean maybe you get rid of ID columns. Maybe they're just going to throw them to the model. The model's going to ignore them anyways, probably, but it's less the model has to do, so they can actually be a little more efficient the less you send over to it. And then lastly, this is more for the consumers. Be thoughtful when asking your questions. And I do mean this kind of in a joking way. These models aren't magic, right? They're very smart, but they aren't always going to pick up exactly what you're trying to ask. So sometimes instead of asking 3 or 4 times and getting frustrated, sit back for, just a couple seconds, think about your question, and then just ask it, as cleanly as you can. That should, in time, you'll get better results, and you won't have to ask as many questions to try to get the same answer. So, but one thing I did turn on in here, this light bulb here brings us to the AI assistant. So I'm acting as a consumer within here, right? So as a consumer, obviously the consumers are going to know which data is in here. I'm just going to ask a question, show top 10 products by profit. We'll see what that comes back with. And then once that produces that one, okay. So we have our pretty simple, and sometimes you have multiple data sets, right? I have a bunch in here. It made sense. The model actually picked sample orders because it probably found it was the most closely relevant to my question. Let's ask one follow-up question. Now I'm basically saying add a breakdown by customer segment to this chart. Okay. So now basically did a horizontal stacked bar that breaks all these down into customer segment. So a lot of things you can do with Assistant. Again, now you can make it available for consumers. That's basically the main thing I want to get my point across. Now, next on the list is watch lists. So we're going to bounce around a little bit to kind of explain everywhere watch lists are, how you can add them, how you manage them. But let's just start by going to this tab. So I'm going to close this panel. Actually, we'll close this panel for a minute. And that's weird that one didn't come up. I'll worry about that later. So watch list basics, right? Consumers can create watch lists, right? A watch list is nothing more than a grouping of visuals. That's all a watch list is. It contains multiple visuals. Watch lists are typically displayed on the home screen. And there's a couple different display options, which we'll go into. If enabled, watch lists can also be displayed in the Insights panel. I'm going to go open up the Insights panel again. I have some watch lists. So I have 2 different sets of watch lists. One of them is called Day 1 and Beyond. Another one is called High Priority. So this allows me to utilize and see any watch list that I've created right when I'm within a workbook. I'll close that again. Watch lists are managed within the home screen. And watch lists will contain links back to the original workbook, right? Because sometimes you might just take a certain visual, add it to your watch list, but then you really want to go back to that workbook. And visuals can be added to watch lists in several different methods. First, any visual that you have access to in a workbook, as long as the developer turns on that setting, you can add them to your watch list. Or through the AI assistant. If I turn that back on again, and I go over to my assistant, you'll see right here. So you see it's showing the two existing watch lists, and I'll say, I'll do a new watch list, and I'll say, uh, consumer demo. So now I have three different watch lists here, and I can show you where they are on the home screen in a minute. So with that, I am going to go back to my home screen. Now on the home screen, to be able to manage and utilize your watch list, you want to come up to your right-hand menu, customize page layout, and we have a few different options. First, we have the featured watch list that can hold up to two of your watch lists. So if I say, I want you to show two of them, and which ones? I want my customer demo, the one I just did, and I want you to show, you can show high priority. So this is featured there. You're going to see the visuals listed on the home screen, and they're going to be active and up to date. I'll close this now. So now there's my two of my watch lists. And you can swap them at any time. Maybe in this one, oh, now I want to see my high priority ones. Right? You can go view all, but you can bring it into basically a different screen, especially if you have dozens of watch lists right here, right? You just kind of say the view all to kind of go into a dedicated screen to manage them. At any time, if I hover over them, this is where I can basically delete, open up the workbook that they came from in a new tab, open up just in a new workbook, or even refresh the data. So if I just hit this icon, it is bringing it to this, the one visual that didn't work. How timely is that? So this, oh, and this time it works. So this is just your basically basic navigation to be able to, let me go back here home. Your basic navigation to configure these up here, delete them, reorder them. But this is on the kind of the featured plane for watch list. So one other option down here is if you don't want to have it like that, but you want to have quick access to them, we also have a watch list kind of row. Just like we have a row for most of the other object types in here, data flows, data sets, workbooks, I can bring in my watch list row in here, and I have the same configurable options of like how many rows of them, what's the size of them. I'm just going to keep them small. And then they are right there. So those are my different watch lists at any time. I can kind of double click and it gets us back to that screen to view all of them. And you still have the same menu items across all of them. So very powerful. And like I said, when you need these answers and they're spread across lots of workbooks that you have access to, put them into one single watch list. And again, when you get those other insights from the AI assistant, well, you can't technically add to that workbook because you're not a developer, but you can add those to your watch lists. So just a lot, very powerful feature within here, a lot of capabilities. And the last one is contextual insights is another place. So this is another newer feature that I'm about to talk about next. And this contextual insights is the last area currently that you can have the system produce visuals for you, and then you can add them directly to your watch list. And now I am just going to run in here one more time. Oh, see what's going on with this one. One thing I like to mention is if you have some visuals that you're creating and well, maybe I should back up. I've created many visuals in workbooks knowing people are going to add them to a watch list. So if you think about that, you might have a page in the back of your workbook that is visuals that are similar to other ones, but they're fully dedicated to be added to a watch list. Because if you play this enough, not all visuals look great in the watch list. Some of them are just too small or have too much information. So sometimes you might want to purpose build a few visuals knowing your users are going to add it to the watch list. And for example, now that I went into developer mode, there's that icon. Oh, there's the icon, add to watch list, right? So that's the other time where you see that icon. I happen to be a developer, but I also could be here And if I made that icon enabled, you can see it and add it from the front end, which is why it's a consumer control, which is why I've added it here. All right, moving on to contextual insights. These allow developers to add related fields to a visual, and those fields that they add to the visual will then allow the system to run some machine learning against it and try to find correlations against your existing visual. So hopefully I explained that well. Meaning, I can take any data point on this chart, right? I can right click, did I turn it off? Oh, I must have turned it off this one. Let's go to present mode, a little bit early on present mode, but let's make sure we can add to watch list. And actually, we'll just turn all these off or turn all these on. I thought I had them on before. So we're going to be back in this screen going over all these in just a few minutes. We'll save that, come back in here, go back to our contextual insights. There we go. There's my menu. So the feature for accessing contextual insights is called explain selected. So really what that does is the developer added a few attributes behind the scenes, and then based on those related attributes, the system will then take a look at the data point you selected and apply it to some of those other visuals. It always gives you a very clear natural language description of the chart in case you're trying to understand what it is. But this is basically understanding this point in time that I grabbed. It basically is saying how this product category is doing against my product containers and basically the distribution across them, right? I didn't ask for this in a sense, but the developers thought this might be useful. And if you add enough related visuals, which I'm going to show you how to do it, you might get multiple pages. So this is, again, another insight for sales and is breaking it down by order priority based on all the data and then my selection. And we'll go to the last one. Again, we have another breakdown. So if I also hover over it, we can see right here, add to watch list. Again, so we can put this on consumer demo. I'll use the recommended settings, even get rid of the title. I'll say add. So again, another way to add to your watch list if you find a visualization you like. And this is also something that you can then bring back to the developer, being like, I would just like this in my normal workbook, versus having to try to find it through these contextual insights. So the way these work are, if I go into edit mode and I go back to visualize, so first you add related columns. If I click on the visual, this is a new area down here, related columns. And this is why I said earlier, if your consumers, this is where you might need the consumers to help you out a little bit to say, hey, these attributes are really closely related to the bulk of what this visual is trying to tell me. If you can add them here, it'd be great because I'd like to see what the system, using the augmented capabilities, would come up with me. That's all it really is. So the more you add here, the more contextual insights that can be surfaced. So step one, add related columns. Step two, go to properties, statistics tab, explain visualization. You need to turn this on, right? So as soon as that's on, that's step two. And then step three, ensure that the canvas has been allowed to use this option under present mode. I'll come back to present mode one more time. And if you see down here, the bottom left, explain visualization. This needs to be enabled. Once those three steps are done, you can do this for any visual you want. So again, it's just another in the long line of augmented features that are being added to the system to make it a little bit more helpful when trying to find insights kind of in an augmented fashion without you having to specifically have to build them or even come up with them yourself. So let's go back to the home page. All right, so that covers those first three: AI Assistant, Watch Lists, and Contextual Insights. Now, I'm doing it in this order because all three of those are controlled in the present mode, right? So the present mode is what, as Uma stated earlier, this is what the features you're giving to the user. And you do this at the very end. You build your entire workbook, then you do present mode last. So let's go into present mode and kind of talk about it a little bit. On a workbook level, let's look at what options are available. I'll pick out some of them. So there's a header, right? This header bar. Like this is part of the header bar, right? I can change the color, the background. I can add a logo, change the font. There are different title properties. My selection is I want you to show the name of the workbook and then the name of the canvas right there. Those are just options. If I look down here for the toolbar section, these are all up here on the top right. So you can turn all these on and off. I think a big one I see people turn off is like, I don't want them exporting, right? And there's certain cases, turn it off. Don't let them do it. Maybe you don't want them refreshing data. If you know the data is being refreshed daily and they're just going to refresh for basically and not do anything and just waste kind of database resources, maybe you turn it off, right? So there are things like that that you can control on a workbook level. There's also some personalization if you want to save the users. That personalization allows users to save their last settings. So if they had a bunch of filters selected, they can go and save that. So the next time they come in there, all those filters are there for them. But again, the developer has to turn that on for them. And of course, if you want to make all of your canvases uniform, you can basically apply to all canvas, like the visualization menu options and the visualization toolbar options. You can apply to all canvases if you want. But all those options are configurable by canvas if you need to. So on a canvas level, these are the three main areas. We have the filter actions. These all have to do with the canvas filter bar, the one that usually hangs out at the top up here, right? I have mine completely turned off, and that's one of the settings. Otherwise, you can actually turn it on, but still disable some of the features. Like maybe you don't want them to remove filters, or maybe you don't want them to add new filters, right? So you can completely customize that canvas filter bar that usually sits at the top of the page. You have your visualization menu and your visualization toolbar. So the toolbar is this right here. This hovers over each visual. It's right in the middle of the screen starting in July. Before that, it was always off to the right. But the visualization toolbar, so in here, again, maybe I want to add this to a watch list. Maybe I want to change the visualization type. So again, I still am, maybe it's find, there we go. So basically it's still breaking it down. These are my three main areas here and all the subsequent attributes of each one. Now you might not like that, but you're still allowing the user to do it. Again, the way developers, use and think these are going to be used, the consumers have a whole different vantage point, a whole different viewpoint, and sometimes they want different charts. So when you can't make everyone happy with the same chart, give them this option, allow them to change the visualization type. Remember, they can't save it. So just kind of a good thing to know there, and of course, a few other options. And then the right click. This is the visualization menu, right? Where you also have the ability to maybe do a data action. That explain one we talked about earlier. They explain the contextual insights. Maybe you want to give that to them, maybe you don't. Export, zoom, chart, a lot of the basics. So this is all the features that you can control in the present mode. So let's just kind of go into a minute. And all right, so I'm already in present mode. And I'm not going to go through each one of these, but you can see here, it starts off with the workbook, and then it goes to each canvas. So just like in the visuals, that if you're building in here and you need to update the properties of a visual, you need to select that visual, and then you kind of go to properties. Same concept here. These first couple sections all have to do with the workbook level. Like I said, style. I have top tabs. Top tabs means I have my pages at the top. That's all that means. Some people want them at the bottom, right? They want them at the bottom. There's a couple different styles here. This is where my title. I'm saying I want workbook name and canvas name. That's just, I think it's easier for the users, again, personal preference. You can put the logo, the color, a bunch of other stuff in there. And again, here's this toolbar. Here's the toolbar over here. Top right. You can turn those on and off. And then here's the insights panel. This one's an important one, right? The insights panel is what is going to control the AI assistant, right? So you need to turn that on So, and we started off this whole session today talking about that, and that's what the developers need to turn that on for their consumers. And then underneath it, it really is all about canvas level properties. Again, if you do it at the workbook level, they will apply to all canvases. Otherwise, if you let's go to this canvas, I can customize it just for this canvas and it will override what's in the workbook. So in this canvas, you can see I have everything selected here. So that's just, that's pretty much all there is with the present mode. But definitely be sure to go in here and make yourself aware of it. And like I said, all the developer in most cases has to do is flip on a few of these and the consumer gets so much benefit out of it. All right, so play this again. So it kind of covers our present mode. Now, conditional formatting. I love conditional formatting. I also, when I see customers that don't have any, I'm always surprised because the point of conditional formatting is to draw your eye to something you should be looking at, good or bad, right? You don't want to make the users have to always hunt for their data. It should kind of pop up right away, kind of almost like just hit them in the face to be like, this is what you should be looking at, based on whatever's going on with your data. So some of the different options include standard background color, font color. We can add icons, emojis, and even notes. All right, so let's kind of walk through a few of these. So up here on the tile header, you can see I've added some icons. I think one of these happens to be an emoji, but you can do them before, you can after, you can change the size of them up there. Typically you're going to see a lot of those on tables and pivots, right? A lot of these flags and emojis and stuff like that. So they're great for these at the top of the screen. They're also great for tables and pivots. Let's go in here for a minute and I'll show you how I did some of these. Again, you do all your work in visualize mode. We'll go to conditional formatting. I'm going to right click conditional. I'm going to manage my rules because I have a bunch of them in here. So for example, let's just take a look at profit right here. I'm going to click this profit one. I said when profit is greater than 10 bucks. Clearly, I just wanted to pop it up for this demo, but you get the point. So if it's greater than whatever, this is how you format it. First is the color. That is the background color of the value. So if I want to make that background color purple, there it is. The whole background color is purple, right? And if you want to get rid of it, just hit this reset button and it's gone. Font is just the font color. But again, you have the size, the font type, a few other features here, font color, all basics. Next is icon. Now this one I love. So you have two different settings here in the icon. You have standard, which are standard icons. You can see here, I think that's the entire list. But the nice thing is any one of these can be any color. That's what I think is important. Any one of these. I want green, but I actually want it to be red, right? So any combination of any color for all these icons makes this for quite a nice palette here. I'll make this one blue, right? I'll say okay. There's my new icon right there. So again, it's not just for tables and pivots. You can also do it in a lot of these areas. And the discount is pretty much no different. If I go into discount, I look there. I think it was an emoji, right? So I selected this. So pretty much everything on your phones in here, you got your different categories down here. And you can add emojis to here when relevant. So pretty straightforward. But what I want to spend the rest of the time on is when putting conditional formatting on graphs. So actually, I am going to remove selected so you can see this one a little easier over here. All right, let's run this. All right, so within here right now, look at the chart down below. Well, I have this highlighted red and I have a note on there, right? A note is one of those features. It's great for when you really want to get their attention. And even if there's more, if there were two bars that were identical, you get a line to each of the bars, right? So it doesn't just highlight this note feature, doesn't just highlight one value, it can highlight multiple values if they are identical. But also here, you can see I highlighted the top one. And these are just using calculations, right? I'm just saying when sales equals the min sale, have it conditionally format and change, right? So I could even get rid of this one Let's remove selected. And there we go. Kind of it moves over to the next one, right? It knows like, oh, I'm no longer associated to that one because we got rid of one of those. I can always undo. But now I want to show you another trick to make sure you know to use advanced calcs. What if you wanted to highlight all the bars that were maybe above the average sales, right? So how would you go about doing that, highlighting all these above average? Well, it's pretty easy. If I come into developer mode, that's first, actually, I'm going to add statistics. I'm going to add a reference line just so we know where our average is, right? So that means we need to hit all of these different bars. We want them to all be highlighted because they're above the average. Conditional formatting, manage rules. I'm going to do a new rule. All right, so it's still on sales, but when I want sales when it's greater than the average, well, that's all you have to put in here. I can create a calculation and I can say average sales. And now give it a color. See how easy that was? So you got to remember in these conditional, that's why I'd say I don't think people really appreciate the power of these conditional formattings, especially in some of these charts, where your limitation is your ability to create these calculations, right? If you, it can handle any calculation that can be built in the system, you can apply to a conditional formatting here. To really take your visuals to the next level, to really identify different pockets, and again, let the users, you know, kind of understand where they should be looking, where they don't need to look right now. So lots of different features, and I'll just show you while I'm in here that note feature right here, what that is. So that was the min sales. If I come and look at here, here's the note. And literally displaying it. You can actually display in the tooltip too, which are going to actually, we have a section on tooltips in a minute, but I just said display in the note. But look, you got a few different options, and that's it. And by doing that, it's just another form of conditional formatting that comes in the form of a little note like this. So I always thought that was pretty cool. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. Now let's go over to active filters. Now we've talked about these in many different sessions, but the reason why I think they fall under consumer controls is because the developer can activate an active filter, but not have it be applied by default. And I'll kind of explain what I mean by that is. I'm going to go into developer mode, active filters. So see right there, that is your active filter icon. All right, so that active filter has now been enabled, and watch all my values at the top, because an active filter, the whole purpose of it is if you put it on a specific visual, it makes every other visual react. See, they changed the top really quick, then we had another one. Yeah, they're changing so quick, but they all are changing, right? Because basically it's feeding the value that I selected into those charts automatically. Now, these active controls are fantastic, but if you go to the properties, this are the two properties you want to be aware of. One, uses active filter. So watch this little blue bar, and I'm going to turn this off. All right, so I can still get to it, but it's no longer an active filter. And the user can also hide it altogether. That off right here, show toggle filter, it is not available. I'm hovering over here, I can't get to it. But in certain cases, you might not want all of your visuals to have active filters. But if the developer says use as filter, or I'm sorry, if the developer says show filter toggle, that means it's there and it allows the consumers to turn it on and off, which is why I feel it's more of a consumer control and the developer has to give them that action. So if you have scenarios where you might have a few visuals on your screen, but all of a sudden you want that to be the active visual, ask your developer to say, show the filter toggle. Just don't apply it automatically, right? So another kind of like little hidden way to enable your consumers. Let's go back to tooltips. All right, tooltips, again, another overlooked feature, I think. I don't think people spend enough time thinking about their tooltips. You can pack in so much information on there to make your visuals just that much more informative. Now, within the tool, we have three different tool type offerings. First one is called, and I'll go into the properties in a minute. It's called Tooltip All Data. This, by default, is going to bring all of the attributes and measures you're using in your visual and throw it on the tooltip by default, right? So in this one, we have profit, we have sales, and each one of these dots on the scatter plot represents a city. So that's your tooltip. Next, grammar panel only tooltip. This is when you don't want to use all the data, and maybe you just want to use one or two different data points. All right, so this one just has sales. So we'll go check that out and see what that looks like in a minute. And then we have a custom tooltip. This is where you can do a combination of pulling in the different values and columns like you can see here, right? You can bring in that. You could certainly bring in one of them, but maybe you want it to be a little bit more informative and you want to give it a little more context at the top. Maybe you want to at the bottom, maybe you want to create a narrative and add your columns in dynamically so it's more readable. Like if you look at the very last section on here. And of course, in the middle, I'm just showing you displaying all the different types. So let's just open these up really quick, kind of look at the properties of them. All right, so this first one, see the tooltip, all data. That's all that is, and all data means all the data on the grammar panel. Very straightforward, that's it. Grammar panel only is when you want to utilize this tooltip drop zone in the grammar panel, right? So even if let's do this, even on the all data, I can drag stuff in this tooltip, and now when I hover here, see, anything that's in that tooltip actually pops underneath, but it's still pulling everything from there, including things you put in the tooltip. Grammar panel only pulls from this tooltip area. So let's bring in min sales. See that? So that's where you're really configuring. I don't want everything in the chart. I only want a few things. And then custom, you have an editor window that you can build. The way this editor window works, a few things to be aware of. One, you can reference parameters in here. So if you have a parameter, you can call it in here and it will display. But for adding any of your labels or values, you simply come to the plus sign and you get the label. See that little icon right there? I just click that. Oops, let's do this. Oh, I think because it's already there. Let's just delete these. I want label. So that's my profit label. So that's just literally going to say profit. But then I can say, there's my profit value. So like down here, I didn't need the label, right? Because I kind of built a sentence out a little bit nicer. So it kind of really depends. And then there's that option of this divider line, which is how I'm getting these lines in there. So along with the rest of the formatting features in there, just a really cool feature. And again, you can bring a lot more to your visuals that way. Okay, moving on to custom backgrounds. One of my favorites, and also I think one that is not used as much as it probably could be. So for my scenario today, this has lots of different practical scenarios. Let's just say I have a schoolroom full of students, right? And in my students, I know the count of each student, I know the student name, I know their grades, and maybe their averages. So one way to visualize this is like, okay, this is a standard, here's all my classes, here's my average grade, same thing. Here's my classes, here's my counts. That's good. Here's just a general kind of table. But what if you had an image of all your classrooms or the layout of them? What if you were able to do this? So let's say this is the way your classes are organizing your building. And remember, this goes way beyond classes. That you say, right here, I can say class 9 has the most students. I see my legend here. Look over here. Class 9 has the most students. Very straightforward. But this is how maybe in my building, and maybe you want to use this as the active filter. right? So this is just, you can think of it like a map. It's under map, but it's just a background and a reference layer to be able to do these. And you can build these directly in the platform. And look at this, super easy to set up. And I'm going to set up one for you right now. And I'm going to show you a few other examples of what some customers are doing with these custom map backgrounds. So in order to do it, you do need to be an administrator or have privileges to access maps within the console. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go to console, go to maps. It's under backgrounds and image backgrounds. So literally any image. A lot of these I will create in PowerPoint and take a screenshot and save it as an image and upload it. So they can be simple. They can be like high detailed, high contrast images, doesn't matter. So the school floor plan, just so you can see it in here, there it is. Pretty simple. You want to do this one I do like. What if you're doing a ticketing system and you have all these seats dedicated and you basically want to populate each one of these points with your, the ticket price or the seat number, whatever. Any image, you can create these, right? So it doesn't matter on the image. And if I show you how to do this really quickly, I'm going to do I'm going to do another school floor, and I'm just going to show you how to do it really quickly, just a few of it. We'll call it school floor plan 2. So we see the image, and once you save the image up here, you then create a layer on top of it. Create map layer. Now, the most important thing here is each of these objects have to relate to a data point, right? So you'd really, when you select class 11, you'd want all records that say class 11 to be associated to it. So here's my spreadsheet I use for this, right? I have a student classroom row with then all my other attributes. But basically, you want to create a hotspot on here that says, okay, all class 1 should be routed to this area. All I have to do is come up here and say a rectangle, and you call it the name of the column. That's it. As long as that matches up to your data set, all those records in that data set will flow into that record. I'll do one more. Class 2, so on and so forth. And once you're done, you save it, you have a new map layer, and then all of your data will basically can flow directly into it. Because you can see I have class 1, and even when I filter this, all these class 1s are populating this over here, right? So very easy to do. And of course, you can do circles if you need to, and polygons. So if I needed, if it was really, so any type of shape you want to make in here, again, you can build your own mapping like geographic ones, but we have most of those maps in the system for you anyways. But you could, if you needed a real custom map because you're going against different congressional lines, or you're just splitting up a state or a territory in a different manner that is typical on maps, spend a few minutes in here, you can create your own map. Again, part of the platform, very powerful, I think a little underused. And I think from a consumer control, this might make it, having these maps on the screen might make it easier to report and visualize, their data that they're looking for. All right, got a few minutes left and just want to wrap up with one last thing, custom home pages. Custom home pages are pretty new. Since I believe 2 releases ago, we have them up here. You can add a new page. You can then inspect the page. And really, they allow you to secure these and give them to different pockets and groups of people. So for example, I could create, this is my day 1 and beyond. I could give it a description. We'll give it a little Oracle logo, give it some color, provide access, right? Have some layout in here. Like I don't want watch lists in here. That's going to have to move. Let's get rid of dashboards. This group doesn't use dashboards and reports. They're not using machine learning. So I'll kind of get that out of there. And we'll turn off featured watch lists. So when I say save, let's get rid of data flows too. This new page, and if someone has access to it, right? I got my logo, my green. It's organized how I want it to be organized. And the trajectory of these is going to be even greater. Expect a lot more coming out of these in the shape of being able to create one-offs for these for maybe leadership, maybe the C-suite or other different groups of people where you can really get more selective on what they can see and what they can do. So it's really allowing you to curate multiple homepages for different users and different divisions across the organization. So this is the beginning of this journey of these custom pages. So there's not a lot to them now, but there will be shortly. And that was everything I think I wanted to cover today. So with that, I want to say a big thank you to everyone and to everyone who attended. And always, I hope this was a good use of your time. I just wanted to say a big thank you to Uma, Joey, Sunil, everyone on the team, Renew, that has helped us create this entire series throughout the last year almost. Thank you to all of them. And we look forward to meeting you again in some other series. With that, I'm going to send it back to you, Uma.
Thank you so much, Pete. Let me share my screen again, and then we'll round out the session today. So things to remember, we did our review refresher on Oracle Analytics Cloud, and then explored all of the core elements, important elements related to consumer controls and features like watch list, present mode, contextual insights, insights panel, image backgrounds, conditional formatting, and custom home pages. I'm gonna let Joey finish off the rest of the session, showing you, where you can learn more and kind of next steps after this series.
Thank you, Uma. Awesome session. Thank you to both Uma and Pete. I know this whole series has been a lot of work and it's been very informative and very useful to all of our customers who have been looking to learn more about Oracle Analytics Cloud. So really appreciate your time and help with all of this. And I hope it was a good learning experience for everyone watching as well. And since this was our last session in our Oracle Analytics Cloud series, what comes next? Well, on the screen here, you can see there are a lot of different areas where you can learn more. You could go through and get certified through Oracle University. We have several different certifications there. You could go through and get some hands-on experience, either through tutorials, through your own free tier account, or we have a lot of labs at your disposal on Oracle Run environments as well through the Oracle Live Labs platform. And you can engage some of our other teams as well to build some hands-on use cases. There's some other resources for you like documentation and the cloud adoption framework to let you see more about each of the products and learn about some best practices. We have an example live lab there and plenty of videos on our Oracle YouTube channel. And beyond that, if you want to engage our team for personal training, that would be with you and members of our team to take you through a wide range of Oracle Cloud topics. You can engage us for personal training. You could also engage us for hands-on live labs through our Quick Shot Live Labs program, where we actually walk through one or multiple labs, which takes about 60 to 120 minutes. There's more Day 1 and Beyond webinars that you can view, and there's developer experience, formerly Code Innovate, that you can walk through that use case if you qualify, and you can do a 5 half-day event with them to build that out. So just contact us at our personal trainer email, and we can engage in some of these with you. And here's a look at the other series. So since the Oracle Analytics Cloud series has finished, you can join plenty of other ones, typically on Mondays or Tuesdays each month. So that includes hands-on series, security series, did you know series to find out what's coming up next on OCI. And then we also have the archived ones. So we have the Cloud Native Launchpad, and then you can also find the Oracle Analytics Cloud series there next. All right, so we're going to put this on the screen here one more time, just to make sure you can navigate to the YouTube channel to find all of the other Oracle Analytics Cloud sessions if you need to reference those again, or if you need to watch them for the first time if you're just joining us today. All right, that is all for today's session, and that is all for the Oracle Analytics Cloud series. So once again, thank you everybody for joining, and have a great day.